The question I want to look at today, ladies, perhaps could you close the door, please? We need full concentration for this class today. We discussed the idea of the Torah, beginning from Shemayim. We discussed the idea that Judaism began in the Jewish year 2448. We're about to go into year 5777, starting in a couple of weeks. So this event, which we refer to as Har Sinai, Mount Sinai event, happened 3,327 years ago or such. I have a question which I want to look at today. And the question I want to have is, what's the difference between the Jewish claim of truth and the other religion's claim of truth? Computers today, computers closed today. It's just notes today. You're going to have to follow today, trust me, you'll thank me.
You're not taking notes?
Use your hand for now, but I want to listen. Thank you so much. So, what's the difference between the Jewish claim of truth and the non-Jewish claim of truth? Do you know what I mean by that question? Every other religion, from the beginning of mankind, of which they say there have been, I don't know, maybe 15,000 cults, sects, and religions over the years, what's the difference between what we say and what they say? Christianity has a claim of truth. They believe that Jesus was resurrected, he's the Messiah. Islam believes that Muhammad is the ultimate prophet. And we have our version. So are we just like another religion out there among the religions?
On the first day, you said that all of Har Sinai saw, the Torah being given. Wow.
So that's the claim that is made. The Torah itself gives a claim that, and we'll look at the source a little bit later, but it makes a differentiation between the amount of people, as we say, the quantity of people at Mount Sinai who received the Torah, but it also makes a difference in terms of the quality. The quality, meaning every single Jewish person was there. That means all of you, unless you're a convert, and then you join the people, all of your ancestors, is the claim, were there at Mount Sinai. Why is that important? I'll tell you. It goes like this. And we'll do another question. What's the difference between a legend and history? Is there a difference, or are they the same? What's the difference between legend, a legend which happened from the past, or historical fact? What's the difference? Is there a difference?
A legend is a story that we're not sure if it happened.
A legend is a story that we're not sure whether it happened. Absolutely, Ruth, you're correct. It's a legend. Then what makes it into history?
It's a fact.
How do you know the difference between a legend of something that may have happened, but then maybe didn't happen, and history, which we're going to assume did happen? How it happened we can discuss. But how do we know the difference between something which is a legend and something which is history? Yeah?
A legend are translated by talking and not writing it.
It could be legends are written down as well. Good morning, ladies. Welcome. We're discussing the difference between legend and history. I'm going to show you something today which is going to blow your minds. And very important information. And it's not my ideas. We're going to see this comes from the Kuzari, among others. Yeah? Legend and history? Difference?
We have proof of history.
We have proof of history. So proof is good. Yeah?
History usually is written down, legends passed around orally.
History is written down. Legends, I mean, Ruth said the same thing. Legends could be written down. I mean, I read a book about George Washington as a child. And George Washington had a cherry tree. Story familiar to you? What happened?
I don't remember, but I know it's something that's
learn in like kindergarten.
Yeah, you're learning. What did you learn over there? You learned that he had a cherry tree and he cut it down, and his father asked him, "Did you do it?" He goes, "I cannot tell a lie. It was I." He admitted it. Some say he didn't admit it. That's the story of George Washington. Did that happen? That story? Would you put that under legend or history? Where would you put that story?
I mean, probably the fact that you're asking us means that it's a legend.
Why? Maybe it's history.
Because, I mean, we wouldn't know. If it was history, we wouldn't know.
You do know it. It's written down in books.
Yeah, but
People talk about it in kindergarten.
Yeah, but it's like a children's book. Should it, like, it doesn't have to happen immediately.
probably
Not necessarily. It was written down in a regular book, but it was put down as a legend. Why? What's going on over here?
I think legends are meant to give moral lessons, where history is just background information.
Legends are for moral lessons and history not. You can learn moral lessons from history.
Yeah, but I think whenever you read history for the sake of reading history, it's just to get a deeper understanding on what happened, just to know why we're here now. But a legend is more to like give you little side notes on, you know, how to go about life because of that story.
Did they happen?
Not necessarily.
I feel like you would know unless you were there.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know unless you were there. Well,
It's like
how do you know anything happened in history? Because I was never there. Did George Washington live? Yes or no? Try that again.
Yeah,
Did George Washington live? Yes or no?
yeah.
How do you know? I wasn't there. I never met him. I never met anyone who met him. I never met anyone who met someone else who met him. Yeah, we all know he lived. It's not even a question. If you turn around and say there was no George Washington, would it be like, you're completely crazy? Why is that considered historical fact? Yet the story about him with the cherry tree is considered legend. What's missing over here? What's the key point? The one word we know, which is going to move it from this into this, or maybe from this into this. What do we need? Proof. Okay.
Okay, Pete.
Now we're getting somewhere. What kind of proof do we need? What's the best kind of proof that we can have?
Photos.
Photos?
Dates.
Are photos good proof? Have you seen photos being altered over history? I mean, they can reveal things to you, but they're always clear.
So like events, dates, times.
I know the event. I'll make up a date or a time.
People, witnesses.
Witnesses.
Yeah.
Now, once you get to witnesses, which is a form of proof, Gabby, once you get to witnesses, it's a whole different story. Once you have people testifying, which is pretty much how every court of law in the entire world works, once you have people testifying to an event that happened, suddenly it becomes very, very different. All of a sudden, I'm like, well, maybe it's not legend, maybe it's not a fake story, maybe it's actually historical fact. Now we can work out the details, and one witness can give a different description of it than another witness, but it's probably the best thing that we have. How do we say witness in Hebrew? Adim is witnesses, adim. Adim are witnesses. When I have adim on something, or adut, which is testimony, which we mentioned last class, suddenly things change. Suddenly I have a different relationship to what happened. I can have different views. 3 people see the same thing, they describe it differently. Right? That's how lawyers make their money. Right? They pick the witness, and they'll see, well, you have a different testimony, and therefore your testimony is not valid, and that person's isn't as well, or maybe this person's is, and they'll bring more witnesses. It's all about witnesses. We are obsessed with witnesses. Live testimony. Cameras can lie, possibly. Videos can lie. But when I have a testimony, someone actually saw it, that's probably one of the best forms of proof. You can write things down differently. I want to figure out whether this event at Har Sinai, the giving of the Torah to the Jewish people in 2448, I want to figure out with you, is it legend or is it history? Let me just put it into perspective. This is very, very important, because we Jews have a claim. We have a claim that Kodesh Baruch Hu, that God gave the Torah to the entire Jewish people. Everyone heard God speak. Some say just the first 2 commandments, and then Moshe Rabbeinu heard the rest of them. But at one point, The entire Jewish people heard God give the Torah to the Jewish people. Not one person or two people, but 600,000 men between the age of 20 and 60, adding wives and kids, maybe 2.5 million people. That's a very, very big claim. Why is that a big claim to make? Why is that such a big claim? Has any other religion ever even claimed such a thing?
Probably not.
Never. It's always the same thing. One person. And pretty much always a man. And that person is by themselves. By themselves. And they heard God speak to them and say, you are the chosen one. You're the one that everyone is going to have to follow. You're the chosen person. And that person, whether it be Muhammad or Jesus or anyone else, or Guru Nanak, had to go to other people and say, I'm the chosen one. How do you know? God spoke to me. I'm the leader. And you have to follow me. Every religion. What would you think about our claim versus every other religion's claim? Would you say our claim is inferior or superior?
Oh my gosh, I just
To
had.
figure out if something is history or legend. Is the claim that millions of people were there an inferior claim or a superior claim? Superior, right? It's better. It's a better claim, isn't it? Of course it is. I have lots of witnesses. So here's my question. Why don't those other religions make the same claim? If we just made it up, which we didn't, then why can't they do the same thing? Why can't the Pope stand on the balcony and say, you know, this whole Jesus thing, we made a mistake. It wasn't a few people who saw him resurrect out of the grave. It wasn't a few people who saw him walking around town. It wasn't a few people who witnessed Muhammad rising to heaven on his horse. I'll tell you what happened. There were actually millions of people who saw God tell Jesus he was the chosen one. Why can't they just make that claim? What would most people say? Had the Pope stand on the balcony yesterday in the Vatican and made such a claim, what would most people say? They believe it or don't believe it?
No.
They don't believe it. Why? What would they say? You can't make that claim because we would have heard about it. You can't say something happened in history that millions of people saw and there's no record of it. I'll give you an example over here. Imagine I told you 100 years ago there was a gold rush in California, and one day golden trees came out of the ground. Thousands of them, all over California. And then after one day, they disappeared. This happened 100 years ago. True or not true? Did that happen or does that not happen? I'm making the claim right now. Yes or no? No. How do you know? You weren't there. Someone else would have seen it. It would have passed down the great gold rush of California, that gold was coming out of the ground. But if I told you, my grandmother lives in California, and we have a story in my family that one day a golden tree grew out of the ground, and it appeared, and the next day it disappeared. Is that true or not true? What's the answer?
Not true.
You can't say that.
But I know you're trying to.
You can't say it's not true. You also can't say it is true. What are you going to have to say?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it did happen. Maybe it didn't happen. We don't know because we weren't there and there were no witnesses. You know, last night I was lying in bed and I couldn't sleep. So I was playing Scrabble on my phone, which I do when I can't sleep. And I'm very good. I'm at a skilled level already. More often it's Candy Crush, but we'll leave that aside. And I'm lying there, and suddenly I heard a voice. And a voice came out of heaven and said, Rabbi Hagio, you are the chosen one. I'm making you the chosen one, and you're going to go and spread the word and talk to the people and tell them you're the chosen Messiah. And the people will follow you, and they'll write checks for you, because preferably, and you're going to become the leader of the Jewish people. And the bed started shaking, and there was thunder and lightning. And my wife was asleep. And after this revelation, I woke up and I told her what happened. And she is now a true follower. Hello? You're the leader of the Jewish people. Anything to say? Well, you look skeptical. You don't believe me? You don't believe me? You really do? Get your checkbook out. $1 million. And you're going to be saved. I know, you're Persian, want a discount. I know how it works. Okay, family discount. Why don't you believe me? Valentine, did you believe what I just told you? Could have happened? It could have. But did it?
No.
You don't think so? You can't say no. You can't say no. It could have happened. Maybe it didn't, but there were no witnesses to that fact. But if I told you last night, I was in Madison Square Garden, and there were thousands of people around me, and a big hand came out of the heavens and pointed at me and said, Rabbi Lawrence Hadjoff, you are the chosen one, and people should worship you and pay you big money. True or not true?
More true at least.
No, it's not true. You definitely know it isn't true. Why?
But you just said everybody saw. Well,
Oh, but I'm telling you everyone saw. What could you say back to me?
look it up.
Why isn't it in the news? Why is it trending, right? On all the news sites? Why isn't it coming on everyone's phone? Like those Amber Alerts go out, Rabbi Hagioff is a new... Everyone would have heard about it. So you definitely know it's not true, or you would have heard about it. Because we have witnesses. This witness thing is very, very important. And it's going to really make a big difference in how we understand the whole claim of Mount Sinai that God gave the Torah to the entire Jewish people. Because all those other religions could have said that millions, but they never did. They never did. It's always one person. Muhammad is by himself on the mountain, him and his donkey. The angel Gabriel, that's right from our Torah, comes to him. He then goes home and tells his wife. And then she becomes a follower, and off they go. And Islam begins. Did that happen? Did that not happen? What are you going to have to say? I don't know. I wasn't there. You can't make that claim. I mean, you can make the claim, but I can't prove it or disprove it. Did Excalibur, right, pull out the sword from the rock? Maybe yes, maybe no. Actually, that story comes from Moshe Rabbeinu and Yisro. His staff was stuck in a rock, he pulled it out. These are nice legends, but you can't see the history because they're lacking a very fundamental thing. The question is why you can't make a superior claim. If it happened, just make a bigger claim. And the answer is because I would have heard about it, like the gold rush in California. It would have been spoken about. You can't make up something that happened thousands of years ago, or hundreds of years ago, or even recently, obviously, unless you have witnesses. You have a king. You have a king. And we're going to change topic in a second, so follow carefully. You have a king, and a king dies before he has a chance to nominate his next son as king. Okay? So he dies, and the two sons start to fight it out to decide who's going to become the next king. And it gets a little ugly. And they start shouting at each other and doing negative advertising, you know, pretty much like you see on TV every single day. And they're fighting and arguing, and one son has his followers, another son has his followers. Eventually, one of the sons comes forward, and he walks into town and says, "It's over, I'm taking over my father." Why? Come to the town square tonight, and I'm going to tell you what happened. That night, there were thousands of people. And the head council of the town, the deciders of who's going to become the next king, are sitting there. And they look at this young man and they say, "Well, why do you think you're the next one, the next king?" He says, "I'll tell you what happened. I went to bed last night, and my father came to me in a dream, and he apologized for not anointing me before, but he did now, and said I'm the chosen one." What would the heads of the council say? Would they believe it? No. They would say, excuse me, if you want us to believe what you're saying, what should have happened is the following. Your father shouldn't have come to you in a dream. Your father should have come to me in a dream. And all of us. If 15 of us had the same dream, now that would have been impressive. Then we could have said, yeah, you're the next king. But you can't come forward and say you had a dream. That's not going to work. It doesn't work that way. Are you following? We have a claim. The claim is that 3 million or so men, women, and children, we even include kids in it, were at Mount Sinai. Quantity is impressive, but it's also quality. What do I mean by quality? What that means is that everyone was there. You see, I can have a story in my family that my grandparents were there. But Gabby Vayner, your grandparents, they weren't there. So you would say, I never heard about this whole Mount Sinai thing. And I'll be like, yeah, because your family weren't there. Only my family were the special ones. So suddenly I have different reports. And the quality has gone down because only a few people witnessed it. But I can't say that. Your great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were there too, and so were yours, so were yours, and so were yours, and all of yours were there. And that makes a really big difference. When we talk about Torah Sinai, what we mean is that God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. That is the code word. Torah Sinai. What it means is that everyone was there. So every Jew that's living can't say, well, I never heard about it because No. If we're talking about it, that means your great-grandparents were there as well. So you have quantity, you also have quality. It's the amount, and also everyone that claims descendancy from these original Jews that came from Mount Sinai. Okay, let's use a challenging but important metaphor. And I'll explain in a minute while we're using this metaphor. Let's take a difficult topic, which for some reason is still being discussed. Okay? And that is, did the Holocaust happen? Well, yes? You sure? How do you know, Ruth? You seem more adamant in this whole Torah thing. The moment you were like, How do you know?
Proofs.
Give me some proofs.
All 6 million Jews killed.
Okay. What's the proof then?
Survivors.
Survivors accounts. Yeah, everyone woke up all of a sudden. Yes.
Concentration camps.
We have camps that are still there. I was in Majdanek. I go once a year with a group to Majdanek. Unlike Auschwitz, a lot of it, I mean, all the barracks are there, but they blew up a lot of the crematoria. But Majdanek is completely intact. You could walk in there tomorrow and just flip the switch and turn the whole thing back on again. So we have camps. Yeah? Anything else?
Nazis that told the stories.
Nazis records. The Nazis love the records. They love the records. They documented everything. Those Germans, they documented it. Names, numbers. They gave testimony afterwards. Anything else? Yeah.
Like diaries, like handwritten.
So, right. Frank, we have diaries and accounts. Right? That's similar to Sarah's accounts, right?
Videos.
Stories. Videos, yeah. There's videos of thousands of dead bodies. I'm sure you've seen it. Thousands of dead bodies piled up, mass burials. I was in the Warsaw Ghetto. You walk into the Warsaw Ghetto, there is a Warsaw cemetery. This cemetery has, I don't know, 100 acres. Hundreds of thousands of Jews are buried there for hundreds of years. And in one area of the front, you see like a big depression. So what is that? Because during the war, right in front of the cemetery, they brought in maybe 30, not too sure, 30, 40,000 Jews, just put them in there, brought over, as it decompose it. Thousands and thousands of Jews. Anything else? Okay, museums, all right, but the museums aren't really proof, it's what's in them. Right, but they contain videos and diaries and records and photos of camps and accounts and photos, of course, not just videos, photos. Are there still Holocaust deniers out there? Yeah. Like tons of them. Not just like weird people who live on the edge of society, the edge of town. Like professors in universities. Half the Middle East, if not more, they asked, did it really happen? Heads of state, heads of countries actually come forward and deny it happened, or deny it happened to this extent. How could that be?
It's a crime to deny that.
In some places it's not a crime, it's seen as a great thing. You got Iran, you want to say the Holocaust didn't exist? It's not a crime in Iran. In Germany it is, but not in Iran it's not. You probably get promoted into the government if you deny it. Walk around Qatar saying the Holocaust didn't happen. No one's arresting you. Trust me. How could this be? With all this evidence, all this information. Yeah.
Most of the people who are involved in it are dead, and by like the next generation, even the survivors are gone. So they're
Weird, right? So we're losing all the survivors every day. There's still a lot of survivors. So how are we gonna perpetuate this? How are we gonna pass this on? When what? We're 70 years after? Thousands of people denied it ever happened. I mean, it started with the extent, and many people say it didn't happen at all. One big hoax. Don't do it. But Google Holocaust hoax. It's not one article from some weirdo. Believe me, you're gonna see a lot of articles.
What do they say?
I don't get it though. They say it never happened. They'll say the survivors' accounts are lies, no one ever saw 6 million people die, the camps were internment camps, people died of, I don't know, diseases, Nazis' records were just made up after the war in order to give Israel a state, the stories, the diaries, okay, Anne Frank, she was a bad person, I don't know, we'll make that up. Videos, Schindler's List, anyone saw Schindler's List? Where was that mostly filmed? In Hollywood. Make it up. Museums, yeah, create sympathy for the Zionist cause. I mean, you can dispel a lot of things. I mean, in life you can deny anything. So we got a problem, don't we? Okay, check this out. I'd like to suggest a solution. Watch very, very carefully. And this solution may help. Since we have all this problem of historical fact, indisputable fact of history, not legend, but history, how are we going to be able to perpetuate it? Well, how about this? Check out this radical idea. Let's start a society together. And we're going to call it the Holocaust Memorial Society. HMS. And what we're going to do is, if you're a member of this society, you're going to have a very special role to play. Okay? If you're a survivor, for the rest of your life, you're going to wear a yellow badge on any clothing you wear. And by the way, if you're a descendant of a member of the HMS, you can do the same thing. And I'll explain why. A child, or a grandchild, or a great-grandchild. How about this? How about wherever you are, wherever you go, you're going to have a Remembrance Day. And on that day, we're going to gather together everyone who's in the HMS. That means if you're a survivor, or your children are a survivor, if you're a child or grandchild, and you're going to get together with your family, descendants of the HMS, and you're going to eat a meal. And in the meal, you are going to take a piece of potato and dip it in salt water and say, you know what? My grandparents, when they were in Auschwitz, when they were in Birkenau, when they were in Bergen-Belsen, when they were in Majdanek, they ate this. And my grandparents did it, and my parents did it, and I do it, and my kids are going to do it. And my grandfather was in Birkenau. In Birkenau, they put the numbers on arms. Auschwitz, Birkenau. I think the only camp they did that. Everyone who's a member of the HMS is going to have a tattoo of the number on their arm. So if you, Gisela, if your grandmother was in Auschwitz, Birkenau, you're going to have a tattoo on your arm of the numbers. And someone's going to come up to you in high school, right, public school where you went to, or come to a college and be like, Gisela, what's in your arm? Like, oh, this is my grandmother's number. They're like, from what? From Auschwitz. What, that really happened? Yeah, because I have it, and my father had it, and my mother had it, and my grandmother had it. And it's the exact number. So you can't tell me it didn't happen, because it goes all the way back. So we're going to have a Remembrance Day, have a meal with potato, salt, and water. Oh, and by the way, you know, they used to get like a little bit of soup and some very dry bread as their daily ration in the concentration camp. So we're going to take a really hard, dry bread. And we're going to eat it. And it's always so pleasant. You have to crunch into it. You know? Not so pleasant. But, hey, my parents did it, and my great-grandparents, all the way back to my great-great-great-grandmother back in, and every generation we've always got together. And this is what we do. So I'm going to have the yellow badge, Remembrance Day. Oh, you know, after the war, it wasn't easy to just go back home. Most people had to go to DP camps, displaced persons camps. They couldn't just go back to Italy or France where they came from. And they lived in these little huts. So if you remember the HMS, you can have the yellow badge, this Remembrance Day with your potato and your salt water and your hard dry bread. But then once a year, and you get a tattoo, and then once a year you're going to live in a hut. Live in a hut. People say like, Ruth, why live in? You have a lovely house. Why live in this hut? The roof is leaking. I'll tell you why. Because after the war, my great-great-great-great-grandmother, all the way back, in 1946, after the war, she wanted to get home and she couldn't, so she lived in a hut. So everyone who's a member of this HMS, and there you are with a yellow badge, and your tattoo, and your Remembrance Day, and you're living in a little hut. Like, why are you doing this? You know, I spend a week in this hut with my entire family once a year. Why would you do that? I tell you why, because my great-grandmother, she lived in this little hut as well. And this is how we remember it. And every year since that event, this is what everyone has done. And you got a friend, Ruth, and your friend approaches you and says, wow, this is so cool, the HMS. I want to join it. All right, we're looking for stuff to join, yeah? And I want to become a member. What would you say to that person? They want to join the HMS. What would you say to them? Hey, what would you say? Are you crazy? Why do you want to join the HMS? You have to wear the yellow badge all the time, and you have to just remember us eating this funny, hard, cold foods, and you have to get a tattoo on you, you have to live in a hut for a week. Why would you do such a thing? You're crazy. What would you say to them? Don't do it. And they're like, no, but it's so beautiful. I love what your family does. I want to become a member. You'd be like, I mean, you can if you want to, but there's a condition. If you're not a member, you're going to have to do all of this. And you can't stop doing it, because this is serious stuff. We're trying to perpetuate the memory of historical fact, the Holocaust. So in order for you to be able to do this, there's rules, right? It's like, well, I really want to do it. Okay, but how about try it out? Try it out for a year. Let's see if 1 year you can do all this. If you could do this for 1 year, then we can talk about it. Oh, I didn't mention the hard stuff. I mean, you know that your parents went without food for a long time, right? I mean, they hardly had any food. There's going to be a lot of fasting as well. You know, I don't know, we'll do 6 fast days or something. during the year. Names still interested? No food, no water. 6, yeah. Yeah, 6 fast days. You still want in? Yeah. Okay, try it out. And then we do the following. So this HMS thing is going so well because we have now thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are following the HMS program. And what are they becoming? Living witnesses to this event that we know happened. Let's gather together, I don't know, 10,000 HMS members in Jerusalem at the Kotel. And all of them are going to write an account of what happened to them. A short account. So we're going to have like 1,000 accounts. And then we're going to attach them all together. And we're going to put them in a scroll. And once a week, no matter where you are, in France, in Germany, in Russia, in Israel, in America, in New York, in New Jersey, wherever you are, everyone who's a member of the HMS has to get together and read a small part of this scroll that tells the account of that original event, the Holocaust. A little scroll. And let's say I want to change a letter in the scroll or a number. That's a big problem. We're going to make that illegal. Why? Because you change an H into an M, it's not like Hitler is Mittler. If you change a 6 into a 2, it's not 6 million, it's 2 million. So every letter is very, very important. I mean, this is the original account. This is what we want. Are you seeing this a little bit now? Are you seeing the analogy? Giselle, you following? What's the yellow badge? We have a yellow badge, we have tzitzit. Remembrance Day. Passover. The tattoo. Circumcision. Live in a hut. Sukkot. Hard dry bread. Matzah we eat on Pesach. Fast days. Enough about them. Now, this isn't proof, but it gives us an ability to at least see how we all become connected to that original event. We, the next generation, become living witnesses. By the way, that story I told you, the 10,000 Jews at the Kotel, actually did happen. It did occur. And Elie Wiesel, of blessed memory, who just passed away recently, was there too. And they gathered together thousands of survivors. And all these survivors, turn to page 18, we'll jump back in a second. It happened in 1981. And a world gathering of Jewish Holocaust survivors arrived in Jerusalem in June. And there was a chairman, his name was Ernest Michel. He said, "My name is Ernest Michel, Auschwitz number 104995. Like many of you had a dream that one day if we live, we could come and stand together. This is a reunion of a special group of people for which there is no parallel anywhere. We want to stand together once more before time runs out, united in freedom as we were in slavery. We want to see in each other's eyes and the eyes of our children the proof of our survival and the joy from being alive and free. But there is more than that. We survivors want to tell those who try to rewrite history and deny the Holocaust ever happened. Our eyes have seen, our ears have heard, our nostrils are filled with acrid fumes from the gas chambers drifting over the camp year after year. These hands," he lifted up his hands, he said, "I carried more corpses than I care to remember, so don't tell us it never happened. We were there." Now, as well as that, they had 1,000 members of the second generation. Now that is a big one, because it only keeps going as fact if there are people to talk about and write it down. Living witnesses. And they formed it, and they wrote a scroll, and they had thousands of candles, and the scroll was written in 6 languages: Hebrew, Yiddish, English, French, Ladino, and Russian. And a survivor read the legacy, and the son of a survivor. And Elie Wiesel spoke at a press conference after. He said, the second generation is the most meaningful aspect of our work. Their role in a way is even more difficult than ours. They're responsible for a world they didn't create. They who did not go through the experience must transmit it. Now go back to page 14. Let's have a look at a book called the Kuzari. This was a book written by Yehuda Levi, and it's a fictional account full of real ideas about a conversation that happened between a rabbi and a king, who pulled together a rabbi and a priest and a Muslim cleric, an imam, to have them argue out whether Judaism is true or whether Islam is true. And the king said, whoever wins this argument, we're going to convert to that religion. Legend has it that the rabbi, through the arguments you read in this book, won the argument, and they all converted to Judaism. Okay? There are many people who incorrectly say that all Jews today are descendants of the Khazars. They do this because they don't want to connect the present Jewish people to the land of Israel. It's a form of anti-Semitism, but we'll leave that aside for now. Let's have a look at what he says, though, because the king, very early on in the book, asks him about this idea. How do you know what happened is true? You make a claim. Christianity makes a claim. Islam makes a claim. How do you know it's true? And he says, Emunah Yisrael misadat al raya. The faith of the Jewish people is based on eyewitness testimony. Ve'ein sarich ima la raya v'la mofet. We don't need proof of demonstration. You see, Moses did a lot of miracles, but they weren't there to prove anything. They were there because you needed it, says the Rambam. You needed the man, because you needed the water out of the rock. So there were all the miracles that happened there for a reason. So what makes us believe? What's the base of Jewish belief? The Torah is from God. Well, how do we know? Because there were millions of people. But I wasn't there. I hear. But what's the claim? The claim is made. How do you know the claim is true? I don't. Well, were there witnesses? Yeah. Do the other religions claim witnesses? No. That's interesting. So we have a superior as opposed to an inferior claim. When Moses spoke to Pharaoh, he said, Elokei Ivrim shalachani elecha. The God of the Hebrews sent me to you. That's referring to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Moses used this expression and this description of God because the patriarchs were well known to the nations of the world. They acknowledged that God clung to the patriarchs. They were also guided by God. Moses didn't say, oh, God sent me. He says the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He based it upon the past reality. God also revealed himself to the Jewish people, not a person, just the claim itself. The claim itself is such. I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. He didn't say, I'm the Lord your God who created the world and you. He said, you saw this. You saw it with your own eyes. And we didn't, but our parents have lived it, and our grandparents, all the way back to Mount Sinai. There is an unbroken chain of information right through history. The divine revelation at Sinai, says the Kuzari, was also an indisputable truth which they personally witnessed and experienced. They saw it. I mean, the big question is, then why did they sin afterwards? Sin of the golden calf happened after this. Well, just because you see something you know it's true, doesn't mean you refrain from doing it, right? I know something's not good for me, I can still do it. I mean, I had a cardiologist that smoked. I know, it sounds crazy, right? He's not my cardiologist anymore. He knows it's going to kill him. He knows the truth. Just so you know something's true doesn't mean you don't mess up in it, right? So although we know it's true, we still sin right afterwards. It's not a contradiction. The divine revelation at Sinai is indisputable truth which they personally witnessed and experienced. The unbroken chain of the oral law was as valid to them as they had seen it with their own eyes. And then we look at what we started with. How do one believe in early historical events? How do you know anything is true? How do you know Abraham Lincoln lived? How do you know George Washington lived? So everyone's heard of the story of the cherry tree. Okay. Did it happen? Yes or no? Black Plague? Did that happen? Yeah. I mean, thousands of people witnessed that. That's not even a question. Okay. It's a true occurrence. Right? We know that in the 14th century, thousands of people died from this terrible disease. So the distinction lies in eyewitness account. Turn over the page. That's why, my dear students, if you look at the Torah, so many mitzvot are connected to coming out of Egypt. Why do we put on tefillin? Mitzrayim. Why do we have a mezuzah on the door? Mitzrayim. It's always Egypt, Egypt, Egypt. Why? Why do people talk about Egypt? What's it got to do with it? Say it's the right thing to do, say it's a mitzvah, say it brings you close to Hashem. That's true. The answer is very, very interesting. The answer is, says the Ramban in Shemot, page 16. Let's do this one slowly. There are many commandments, behen mitzvot rabot, zecher l'yetziat Mitzrayim, to remind us of the exodus from Egypt. All are to be for us in generations testimony. There's that word again. V'kol lanu b'chol hadorot edut, testimony, but moftim of the great miracles, shelo yishtachu, that you won't forget. V'lo yeh pitchon peh, there won't be a way that a person will open their mouth, l'koth alachi shemot elokim, that God can deny, anyone can deny God's existence. I mean, they can try. Ki hakona mezuzah b'zuzah, a person buys a mezuzah for a few dollars, echad v'kaver b'toch, and he puts up on his door, but it kaven, as soon as you do that, well, my parents did, my grandparents did this, and a piece of the side, this goes back to a scroll that goes back thousands of years. And what does the scroll say? We were slaves in Egypt, and God took us out. It's not a new thing. It's interesting that every other religion, I mean the main ones, don't deny Judaism. According to Christianity, did God give the Torah to the Jewish people? Yeah. I mean, then Jesus came and it became the Old Testament. Why don't they just say, Judaism, nonsense, throw it out? It's a postulate. They have to agree it happened. Or they can say later on someone came and tried to replace it, but they don't ignore it. They don't say, it's nonsense. According to real Islam, theologically speaking, which unfortunately most Muslims are not even aware of, but according to Islam, did God give the Torah to the Jewish people? Yeah, they believe the Torah is true. Thank you, Muhammad. Jesus came along, and then they remove themselves from the covenants of God. But according to their theology, it did happen. It just got replaced. Replacement theory, but it did happen. It's interesting because in Judaism we have something called Amoscha Avero Alav. If you want to pull something away from someone, if you want to take something from them that you think is yours, you've got to bring proof. Who had the truth originally? Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Baha'ism? We came first. If you want to take it away, you've got to prove. You've got to prove very well to pull away from us. If you want to prove any differently, don't you? Are you with me? Let's reach the Rambam, we'll take questions. I apologize for making you think today. I was planning on just having memorized information, but I thought I'd make you think a little bit today. Hope you don't mind. I think your parents will be happy. Lefikach amru, you've got to be very careful with the small mitzvah, which seems insignificant to you, as you are in a big mitzvah. Because all of them is special. It could be a very small thing, but even a small thing can jolt your memory back to the original event. Because all of the mitzvot help us connect to the original event of Mount Sinai, and all of them prove God's existence. All the mitzvot prove that there's a God and God created the world. Right? And how do we know? Because there was a time in history which everyone agrees to. Right? I mean, the theologians, and others can as well, that we were slaves in Egypt. There were great miracles that happened, which didn't just happen to us. Everyone saw them. And God took us out. And 49 days later, we sat at Mount Sinai. Was I there? No. Can I prove it? I can't prove it to you. But I can present facts of generations that, 70 years later, people are denying the Holocaust. We've been around for 3,500 years. V'hi kavanah yitzira. And that was the intention. And that's when God said, I'm making a covenant with you. It wasn't just for the people there that God started whole Judaism. It isn't just for them. It's for everyone else. Not because of just you, I'm making this covenant of oath, but with all those who are here and those who are not here. That's what it says in the Torah. Who's that? That's us. 3,500 years later. For us, we have to imagine we're still there. And on Pesach, that's what we do. On Pesach, we imagine we were still there. And on Shavuot, we imagine we received the Torah. And on Sukkot, we imagine that we were in those tents, or we had the cloud surrounding us. When we get the Jewish holidays, we'll see why. And in case you think this Holocaust denial is a few people, I put a list of professors, heads of state, countries who deny it as well. I mean, it sounds weird, but even Jews today. Yes. That's all the information I wanted to share with you today. Do you get where we went today? You saw the journey we took? Anyone heard this idea before? It's not my idea. Okay. Yes, Ruth.
Muhammad Ahmadinejad, right?
Yes.
The first one. He said it was to protect the state of Israel.
Yes.
Yet the
That is one of the claims that is made by the Muslim world, that it was exaggerated, it was all made up. And the reason is because they wanted to get sympathy from the world, so they used the Holocaust as a way to brutally treat other people. That is the claim that they make. It was made up for political reasons. Listen, he's wrong, obviously. And most of the civilized world accepts it. But it's politically motivated.
But it didn't make any sense. Like the Holocaust ended, let's say, after the Second World War, and the state of Israel.
It was 1948, 3 years later. I hear. That's the claim they make. And they use it, they say we use it as justification. Sick! There's sick people in the world. Not everyone's good. And actually, Rabbi, everyone's good, right? There's some bad people out there. Really bad people. Any thoughts, comments, anything we discussed? Yes.
I believe it, like, of course, but why don't we, like, go back to Mount Sinai and try to find, like, some form of scientific proof?
Great question. Great question. First of all, it's hard to find scientific proof at a mountain. Second of all, we don't really care about where it happened. We don't really care about what people were wearing. I mean, there's university courses, and there's people who've done research, there's people who try to go back. But that doesn't do anything. What we want to know is what happened there. What's the claim? What's the claim? That's going to do it. I mean, there are people who do archaeological proof of various things of Egypt and various things out of Egypt. Yeah, there's stuff that's there. Yeah. But that's not it. For us, it's the written word and testimony. That's what we get excited about. And the description of it. Yeah.
So would you say that Judaism is like the superior religion?
You can't say superior religion, right? Because we don't have a monopoly on God. You can say the claim of Judaism is a superior claim, which proves its truth.
Like, would you say that?
Hear the difference? Hear the difference?
Yeah. But like, would you say like Jewish people that practice the religion were like superior?
They're members of the HMS. Not superior, we have a different mission. Oh, we're going to talk about that actually. Next class, we're going to talk about the idea of being a chosen people, what that's about. It doesn't mean superior, it just means different. We have a unique role. Like members of the HMS, they had a unique role. Are they better than those who are not members of the HMS? No. You just have a specific mission to perpetuate something that happened in the past. The Jewish people are the same. We have a specific mission to perpetuate something that happened in the past. There's a lot more to it. Right? There's a spiritual aspect, a theological aspect. There's a lot more to it. But on a basic level, we are the living witnesses to everything that's in the Torah. And everything that precedes it as well. Because from Mount Sinai, everything beforehand took on relevance and truth as well. All right. Looks like your brains are full. We shall stop over there. Thursday we'll go to the next phase and talk about the idea of what is a chosen people all about. Have a good and successful